It began, as these stories often do, with a whisper, a shadow in a glow of monitors, a quiet figure tapping away in a room no one would ever find. The world outside went about its business. Commuters rushed, markets shifted, governments made decisions. But inside, in this one small apartment, a single person was quietly rewriting the rules. This person was not a villain, at least not in the way the world would come to fear, nor were they a hero in the traditional sense. They were something rarer, a mind so sharp, so daring, that it would leave an entire nation scrambling to catch up. He, or sometimes she, because we still don't know, remained invisible. Authorities would later call them the most elusive hacker of the decade, someone who could penetrate layers of digital fortresses as if they were paper walls. But the story is not about technology, it's about people, the stakes, the cost, and the strange, fragile humanity behind a mind so brilliant it could bend the rules of the modern world without ever being seen. The first sign of disruption was subtle. Banks reported small, almost imperceptible anomalies, transactions that didn't make sense, numbers that shouldn't have existed. Officials brushed it off. It was probably a software glitch, they said, a minor oversight. But as days turned into weeks, the glitches became patterns, and the patterns formed a message. Someone was inside the system. No alarms blared, no sirens, just silence. But inside government offices, the unease grew. Analysts pored over lines of code, logs, security reports, each more confusing than the last. Every trace the hacker left behind seemed designed to mislead. It was not chaos for chaos's sake. It was calculated, almost artistic in its execution. To understand what happened next, you need to understand the mind of someone who sees the world not as it is, but as it could be. Imagine a chessboard where every pawn, every knight, every rook moves with a life of its own. Now imagine doing that not on a board, but across the digital veins of an entire nation. That was him. That was the scale of his vision. Journalists would later piece together fragments of his activity. One report detailed how an entire election system had been tested, not compromised, but tested in ways that left officials dumbfounded. Voting machines, databases, even encrypted communication channels all fell under scrutiny. Nothing was broken, at least not permanently. But the message was clear. The system could be bent if someone knew how. Experts in cybersecurity often describe such minds as lightning fast and ruthlessly logical. They can predict moves before they happen, see connections invisible to others, but what they rarely mention is the loneliness, the isolation, a life lived in darkness, illuminated only by the glow of a screen, the hump of a processor, and the endless lines of code. Behind the brilliance was a human being, susceptible to fear, to doubt, to longing, and yet the hacker made choices that astonished even the most hardened security professionals. Sensitive files were accessed, yes, but never destroyed. Private accounts were touched, but never emptied. Money could have been taken. Opportunities to wreak havoc presented themselves, but instead, what emerged was something else entirely. Proof of vulnerability, an invisible message written in the digital bloodstream of the country, a warning wrapped in mastery. One former government analyst recalls the moment the breach was understood. We realized someone had been inside our systems for months, maybe years, and not once had they taken what they could. It was like they were teaching us in the only way they knew how. The media tried to tell the story in black and white, villains and heroes, but that was never the truth. This person operated in shades of gray. Their motivations were partly intellectual curiosity, partly a desire to expose weakness, and partly something personal, though what that was, we may never know. Rumors, of course. Some said they were a former insider, someone who had worked in the system and grown disillusioned. Others whispered of a young prodigy, barely out of their teens, so brilliant it defied imagination. Even the theories that circulated were clues in themselves, fragments of a puzzle intentionally left for the world to chase. As investigations dragged on, one truth became painfully clear. Catching them would be nearly impossible. Every strategy, Every firewall, every digital trap seemed to anticipate the next move. The hacker was always one step ahead, and in that there was a lesson far greater than the hack itself. Systems, no matter how sophisticated, are only as resilient as the people who guard them. And brilliance, human, unpredictable, relentless brilliance, can expose even the most fortified structures. But beyond strategy and skill, there is another quieter story, one of sacrifice, because a mind like that does not operate without cost. Friends were few, trust was rarer, nights blurred into mornings, and years passed unnoticed. Achievements were invisible, recognition fleeting. The hacker existed in a paradox, unseen yet omnipresent, powerful yet profoundly alone. In the end, no one knows exactly who they are, where they are, or what they will do next. Some argue the country is safer because the hacker exposed vulnerabilities before someone with worse intentions could. Others worry that it is only a matter of time before another mind, equally brilliant but less restrained, takes their place. And perhaps that is the most haunting part of this story. It is not about the hacker, it is about us, about the systems we trust, the choices we make, and the fragility of the digital world we inhabit. It forces a reflection that cannot be ignored. How much of our lives, our secrets, our identities, and our freedoms depend on invisible guardians we may never know. So we sit with the question, long after the computers are silent, long after the analysts have gone home. What does it mean to outsmart an entire country? And what does it say about the brilliance, the ambition, and the quiet, enduring loneliness of the human mind? The hacker remains unseen, but the imprint they left is indelible. In every system, every login, every overlooked vulnerability, their shadow lingers. And perhaps one day we will finally understand them, or at least understand what it takes to see the world not as it is, but as it could be.